Hard things do not get easier by waiting. They get easier by repetition, pressure, and refusal. If the mind is left alone, it will always choose comfort, delay, excuses, and escape. That is the law. So this book is not about motivation. It is about force. It is about training the mind to obey before it feels ready, to move before it feels confident, and to finish what fear keeps trying to stop. Because the real battle is not out there. The real battle is between comfort and command must win. Chapter 1. Stop negotiating with your comfort. Your life is not being decided by one huge failure. It is being decided by 1,000 small negotiations. A little delay, a little excuse, a little softness, a little bargaining with yourself. That is how weak minds are built. Not in one day, not in one moment, in small agreements with comfort. You tell yourself later. You tell yourself tomorrow. You tell yourself not today. And every time you do that, you train your mind to obey comfort instead of command. That is the first truth. You have a choice. You are not trapped by your schedule. You are not trapped by your mood. You are not trapped by your past. You are trapped only when you keep saying yes to the easy version of your life. And the easy version always comes with a price. That's the key. Comfort is never free. It always costs you discipline, time, confidence, and momentum. Look at real life. The man who says he will start the business next month is not being wise. He is negotiating with comfort. The woman who says she will begin the workout when she feels ready is not being patient. She is bargaining with comfort. The student who says he will study after one more scroll, one more video, one more distraction is not resting. He is surrendering. And every surrender makes the next one easier. That is the pattern. You do not rise to the level of your dreams by protecting your comfort. You rise by breaking your attachment to it. You have a choice. When the alarm rings, you can negotiate or you can rise. When the task feels heavy, you can negotiate or you can begin. When your mind says this is hard, you can negotiate or you can move. That's the key. The mind must learn that discomfort is not a signal to stop. Discomfort is often the signal to start. Most people wait until the feeling changes before they act. That is why most people stay stuck. They want to feel powerful before they do the hard thing. They want to feel confident before they speak. They want to feel motivated before they work. They want to feel ready before they begin. No, that is not how strength is built. Strength is built when you do the hard thing while the mind is still complaining. It's not about comfort, it's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about comfort, it's about discipline. Comfort is emotional. Discipline is structural. Comfort changes with the weather. Discipline stays. Comfort says protect yourself. Discipline says perform anyway. Comfort asks for relief. Discipline demands results. And this is where most people lose. They think they are choosing peace, but they are actually choosing decline. They think they are choosing ease, but they are actually choosing delay. They think they are giving themselves grace, but they are really giving themselves permission to weaken. Do not confuse softness with wisdom. A hard life is not destroyed by hard work. It is destroyed by repeated excuses. So here is the instruction. Stop asking your mind how it feels before you act. Ask what must be done, then do it. If the room is messy, clean it now. If the message has been sitting unanswered, send it now. If the workout needs to happen, begin now. If the project has been delayed, open it now. If the prayer has been postponed, speak it now. Do it now. Not because you feel like it, not because the conditions are perfect, not because someone is watching, but because the habit of immediate action is what breaks the power of comfort. You don't need their permission. You do not need people to approve your discipline. You do not need applause before you start. You do not need a crowd. You do not need validation. You need movement. You need obedience. You need the courage to stop bargaining with yourself. Most of your excuses sound intelligent. That is what makes them dangerous. They do not always sound lazy. They sound reasonable. I'm tired. I have time. I'll do it when I'm in the right headspace. It will be better later. Those are not always lies in the simple sense, but they become lies when they are used to delay your growth. You have a choice, and every choice is training. Every time you choose comfort over action, the mind learns weakness. Every time you choose action over comfort, the mind learns strength. That is why the small moments matter. The bed matters. The desk matters. The first 5 minutes matter. The first refusal matters. The first decision to keep going matters. Because character is not built in the dramatic moments. Character is built in the ordinary moments when no one is clapping and no one is forcing you. You say you want a better life. Good. Then stop treating discomfort like a threat. Stop treating effort like punishment. Stop treating hard things like they are unfair. Hard things are not unfair. They are necessary. The workout is necessary. The deep work is necessary. The silence is necessary. The repetition is necessary. The early morning is necessary. The lonely stretch where nothing is happening yet is necessary. That's the key. If you can learn to move without being rewarded immediately, you become dangerous in the best possible way. You become hard to distract, hard to derail, hard to seduce into quitting. You stop being ruled by impulse. You stop being ruled by comfort. You stop being ruled by the part of you that wants the shortest path. You start thinking like someone who is building a future, not chasing a feeling. And when comfort starts speaking, answer it with action. When it says take it easy, answer no. When it says skip today, answer not happening. When it says you can do it later, answer do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. That repetition matters because the mind remembers what it hears often. So hear this often. Comfort is expensive. Comfort is expensive. Comfort is expensive. It drains your potential one quiet choice at a time. It steals from the future while promising relief in the present. And relief is not the same as freedom. Freedom comes from control. Freedom comes from discipline. Freedom comes from being able to tell your mind, we are doing this, and then doing it. You have a choice, and every choice is training. Every time you choose comfort over action, the mind learns weakness. Every time you choose action over comfort, the mind learns strength. That is why the small moments matter. The bed matters. The desk matters. The first 5 minutes matter. The first refusal matters. The first decision to keep going matters. Because character is not built in the dramatic moments. Character is built in the ordinary moments when no one is clapping and no one is forcing you. You say you want a better life. Good. Then stop treating discomfort like a threat. Stop treating effort like punishment. Stop treating hard things like they are unfair. Hard things are not unfair. They are necessary. The workout is necessary. The deep work is necessary. The silence is necessary. The repetition is necessary. The early morning is necessary. The lonely stretch where nothing is happening yet is necessary. That's the key. If you can learn to move without being rewarded immediately, you become dangerous in the best possible way. You become hard to distract, hard to derail, hard to seduce into quitting. You stop being ruled by impulse. You stop being ruled by comfort. You stop being ruled by the part of you that wants the shortest path. You start thinking like someone who is building a future, not chasing a feeling. And when comfort starts speaking, answer it with action. When it says take it easy, answer no. When it says skip today, answer not happening. When it says you can do it later, answered, "Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now." That repetition matters because the mind remembers what it hears often. So hear this often. Comfort is expensive. Comfort is expensive. Comfort is expensive. It drains your potential one quiet choice at a time. It steals from the future while promising relief in the present. And relief is not the same as freedom. Freedom comes from control. Freedom comes from discipline. Freedom comes from being able to tell your mind, "We are doing this," and then doing it. You have a choice, and every choice is training. Every time you choose comfort over action, the mind learns weakness. Every time you choose action over comfort, the mind learns strength. That is why the small moments.
Chapter 2. Make discipline louder than feeling. Feelings are real. Feelings are loud. Feelings are powerful. But feelings are not leaders. That is the truth most people refuse to face. They wake up and ask how they feel before they ask what must be done. They let emotion sit in the driver's seat. They let mood make the decisions. They let comfort whisper into the day and call it wisdom. And that is why they stay unstable. You have a choice. You can live by feeling, or you can live by discipline. You cannot build a serious life on emotional convenience. You cannot create strength by waiting to feel strong. You cannot become reliable while obeying whatever mood shows up that morning. That's the key. Discipline is not loud in the beginning. It does not clap for you. It does not flatter you. It does not promise an easy day. Discipline simply speaks first. It says, "Get up." It says, "Start." It says, "Continue." It says, "Finish." And if you obey it long enough, your life changes. People think motivation is the fuel. It is not. Motivation comes and goes. Feelings rise and fall. Some mornings you will feel clear. Other mornings you will feel heavy. Some days you will feel ready. Other days you will feel resistance in every part of your body. That is normal. That is human. But the disciplined person does not wait for a perfect emotional forecast. The disciplined person moves before mood. Repeat that. Move before mood. Move before mood. Move before mood. That is how momentum is created, not by waiting, not by hoping, not by negotiating with the mind until it agrees to cooperate. Momentum is created when action begins while resistance is still present. Look at the simplest example. The alarm rings. The body says, "Sleep." The mind says, "5 more minutes." The feeling says, "Stay in bed." And if you listen to feeling every morning, you train yourself to be weak before the day even starts. You teach your brain that comfort has authority. You teach your nervous system that resistance wins. You teach your future that your promises are optional. You have a choice. Get up when you said you would get up. Start when you said you would start. Work when you said you would work. That is how trust is built, first with yourself, then with the world. It's not about tiredness, it's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about tiredness, it's about discipline. Tiredness is real, but tiredness is not always the truth. Sometimes tiredness is just the body asking for a pause. Sometimes it is the mind asking for escape. Sometimes it is fear wearing a softer mask. Do not worship every sensation that passes through you. Do not treat every low feeling like a command. Feelings are not instructions. Feelings are information. Discipline is action. That's the difference. A person who waits to feel inspired before working will always be fragile. A person who works first and lets inspiration catch up becomes dangerous in the best way, because now the body learns a new law. It learns that motion is not dependent on mood. It learns that effort can begin before excitement arrives. It learns that commitment is stronger than emotion. That is the transformation. You do not need to feel like a winner before you train like one. You do not need to feel confident before you speak clearly. You do not need to feel motivated before you produce. You do not need to feel brave before you take the next step. You have a choice. You can obey the feeling or you can override it. This is where many people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is a punishment. It is not. Discipline is protection. It protects your future from your present weakness. It protects your goals from your mood. It protects your identity from collapse. Discipline is not cruel. Discipline is kind in the long term. It tells the truth early so you do not suffer later. The person who keeps working when they do not feel like it is not being fake. That person is being free. Free from impulse, free from mood, free from the tiny tyrant of emotion that keeps saying, "Not now." And that tiny tyrant is expensive. It costs you days. It costs you confidence. It costs you momentum. It costs you self-respect. Every time you let feeling overrule discipline, you weaken the muscle you need most. Every time you act anyway, you strengthen it. That is the game. You are training something every day. You are training surrender or you are training command. You are training softness or you are training structure. You are training the habit of stopping or you are training the habit of continuing. There is no neutral. So here is the real instruction. When you feel uninspired, do the work. When you feel tired, do the work. When you feel distracted, do the work. When you feel irritated, do the work. When you feel slow, do the work. Not because feeling does not matter, but because feeling does not lead. That's the key. Action creates emotion, not the other way around. Most people wait for confidence. They wait for clarity. They wait for a burst of energy. They wait for the right playlist, the right atmosphere, the right timing, the right mood, the right moment. And while they wait, their life stays untouched. Do not wait for the right feeling to begin the right thing. Begin, then feeling will follow. You do not need their permission. You do not need outside approval to be disciplined. You do not need someone to cheer before you become serious. You do not need a crowd to validate your commitment. You need consistency. You need repetition. You need the quiet courage to do what must be done, even when no one is impressed. A disciplined life looks boring from the outside. That is fine. Boring is powerful when boring is productive. Boring is powerful when boring wins. The body may resist. Let it resist. The mind may complain. Let it complain. The feeling may fade. Let it fade. You keep moving. That is how the weak become reliable. That is how the inconsistent become steady. That is how the emotional become effective. You have a choice. And the choice is not between comfort and pain. The choice is between being ruled and being responsible, between reacting and directing, between drifting and deciding, between mood and mastery. Discipline speaks first. It speaks before fear. It speaks before hesitation. It speaks before excuses. It speaks before feelings. And the more often you listen, the clearer your life becomes. Not because the work gets easier, but because you get stronger. Not because resistance disappears, but because you stop treating resistance like authority. Not because emotion dies, but because emotion stops running the system. That's the lesson. You are not here to be emotionally obedient. You are here to be mentally trained. And once the mind learns that discipline comes first, everything changes. The mornings change, the work changes, the results change, the identity changes, the future changes. So from this chapter forward, stop asking what you feel, ask what is required, then move. Move before mood. Move before mood. You have the power to do that. You have the choice. You have the standard. And that standard is the beginning of a stronger life.
Chapter 3. Destroy the Habit of Delay.
Delay looks harmless at first. It does not look like destruction. It looks like a pause. It looks like patience. It looks like, I'll get to it. But delay is a thief. It steals momentum before you notice. It steals confidence before you notice. It steals time before you notice. And by the time you notice, the habit is already living in your life. That is the danger. You have a choice. You can face the task now, or you can let delay train your mind to avoid it. And the more you delay, the more natural delay becomes. That is how weakness grows. Not through one big failure, through small postponements, through repeated later, through constant not yet. One more minute becomes one more hour. One more hour becomes one more day. One more day becomes one more month. One more month becomes one more year. That is how people lose their lives to delay. The message sits unanswered. The work stays unfinished. The workout gets postponed. The goal gets ignored. The plan remains inside the head and never enters the world. And then the person wonders why nothing is changing. Because delay is not neutral. Delay is active. Delay is a decision. Delay is a pattern. Delay is a habit that tells the mind we do not move until we feel like it. And once the mind learns that rule, it becomes harder to act every day. That's the key. You are not just postponing a task, you are training an identity. Every time you delay, you teach yourself that discomfort has power over you. You teach yourself that friction means stop. You teach yourself that action is optional. And after enough repetition, you stop being someone who acts. You become someone who thinks, plans, talks, and delays. That is not a small problem. That is a life problem. Look at the real world. The person who keeps saying they will reply later loses relationships. The person who keeps saying they will start Monday loses years. The person who keeps saying they will clean it up tomorrow lives in chaos. The person who keeps saying they will work on the idea later never becomes the person the idea was meant to create. Delay is a thief. Repeat that. Delay is a thief. Delay is a thief. Delay is a thief. It steals your best energy. It steals your best timing. It steals the window when the work should have been done. And once the window closes, regret enters. Regret is what delay leaves behind. So what do? You stop making peace with postponement. You do not negotiate with the first excuse. You do not sit down and have a long conversation with procrastination. You do not wait for the perfect mood. You do not wait for the right time. Start before your mind argues. That is the rule. Because the mind loves to debate in the doorway. The moment you approach something difficult, it begins speaking. Maybe later. Maybe after this. Maybe when you have more energy. Maybe when you know exactly what to do. Those are not instructions. Those are traps. You have a choice. Either you move first, or your mind takes control of the moment. And here's the truth most people need to hear. Clarity often comes after motion, not before it. The mind wants certainty before effort. Life often gives certainty after effort begins. You will not always know how the task will unfold. That is normal. You do not need perfect clarity to begin. You need enough courage to start. That's the key. Start small if necessary. Start ugly if necessary. Start tired if necessary. Start confused if necessary. Just start. Because action breaks the spell of delay. A clean desk begins with one item moved. A finished project begins with one page written. A healthier body begins with one workout completed. A better future begins with one decision made today. Not tomorrow, not later, today. You don't need their permission. You do not need someone to tell you to begin.
You do not need someone to remind you for the 5th time. You do not need approval to be disciplined. You do not need motivation to make a move that your future depends on. You need responsibility. You need self-command. You need to become the kind of person who does not wait to be pushed. That is maturity. Maturity is not talking about the job. Maturity is doing the job. Maturity is not admiring the goal. Maturity is starting the work. Maturity is not promising change. Maturity is proving change. It's not about laziness. It's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about laziness. It's about discipline. Because many people call it laziness when the deeper problem is avoidance. They are not always unwilling. They are untrained. They have built the habit of delay so long that movement feels heavy. But habits can be replaced. That is the good news. Delay is learned, so discipline can be learned too. Here's how you fight delay in real life. When a task appears, touch it immediately. Do not open the task and then walk away. Do not make the list and then leave the list untouched. Do not think about the workout and then skip the workout. Do not draft the message and then abandon the message. Do the first step now. Reply now. Write now. Move now. Schedule now. Clean now. Begin now. Delay loves unfinished beginnings. Discipline loves immediate action. And when the mind says, "This is too much," cut the thought short. Break the task into a smaller task. Start with the smallest possible action. Open the file. Put on the shoes. Send the first sentence. Wash one plate. Read one page. Make one call. Small action is still action, and action is what kills delay. You have a choice. Either you keep waiting for the perfect moment that never comes, or you become dangerous to delay. Be the person who responds quickly. Be the person who starts quickly. Be the person who finishes what they begin. Be the person whose life moves because they move. That is power. And power does not come from having 1,000 intentions. Power comes from reducing the distance between thought and action. Think it, then do it. That gap must shrink. Think it, then do it. That is how you train the mind to stop stalling. That is how you stop leaking time. That is how you stop losing confidence. Because every completed action deposits something back into your identity. It says, "I am trustworthy." It says, "I keep my word." It says, "I do not hide from the hard thing." And once that identity is in place, delay loses its grip. One more minute becomes a habit. One more hour becomes a pattern. One more action becomes a standard. That's the key. You are building standards now, not someday, now. So destroy the habit of delay. Do not pet it. Do not excuse it. Do not romanticize it. Cut it off early. Move before the argument begins. Start before the excuse grows teeth. Because your future is not waiting for your comfort. Your future is waiting for your decision. And every time you defeat delay, you make the mind stronger, the day sharper, and the life cleaner. That is how the transformation begins. You have a choice. You have the moment. You have the task. Take it now.
Chapter 4. Learn to stay uncomfortable. Growth begins where comfort ends. That is not a slogan. That is a law. If you keep running from discomfort, you will keep running from the very thing that changes you. Pressure is not the enemy. Uncertainty is not the enemy. Strain is not the enemy. The real enemy is the mind that panics every time life asks for more. You have a choice. You can treat discomfort like danger, or you can treat it like training. And the moment you stop fearing discomfort, the moment you stop flinching at the burn, you begin to change. That's the key. Most people do not fail because they are incapable. They fail because they cannot stay present when things feel difficult. The conversation gets tense and they avoid it.
The workout gets hard and they slow down. The speaking opportunity appears and they shrink. The work session stretches longer than expected and they escape into distraction. That is where the life is lost. Not in the fire, in the refusal to stay in the fire. Stay in the fire. Repeat that. Stay in the fire. Stay in the fire. Stay in the fire. Because the fire is where weakness is exposed. The fire is where excuses burn off. The fire is where the mind learns to stop collapsing at the first sign of pressure. And if you can remain steady inside the fire, you become harder, sharper, stronger, more useful to your own future. Comfort is not your home. Remember that. Comfort is not your home. Comfort is not your home. Comfort is not your home. Comfort is a rest stop, not a destination. If you build your life around comfort, you build a small life, a controlled life, a delayed life, a life where every challenge is treated like an attack instead of an opportunity to grow. Look at real life. A difficult conversation is avoided and resentment grows. A hard workout is skipped and the body stays weak. A public speech is postponed and confidence never matures. A long work session is interrupted and the project never gets finished. These are not separate problems. They are the same problem wearing different clothes. The mind wants relief. The disciplined person wants results. You have a choice. When the chest tightens before a hard conversation, you can retreat or you can speak. When your muscles burn in the middle of a workout, you can quit or you can continue. When your voice shakes before speaking to a room, you can hide or you can stand. When fatigue comes during long work, you can escape or you can stay. That's the key. The discomfort is not telling you to stop. Often it is telling you that you are finally in the right place. The edge is where your next level lives. The pressure is where your next level lives. The strain is where your next level lives. People want growth without friction. They want confidence without exposure. They want strength without strain. They want a calm life and a powerful life and a transformed life, all without enduring discomfort. It does not work that way. The body becomes stronger through resistance. The mind becomes stronger through resistance. The character becomes stronger through resistance. Stay in the fire. The first time you stand in discomfort, it feels abnormal. The second time, it feels less threatening. The third time, the mind starts learning. The fourth time, you start changing. The fifth time, discomfort stops being an emergency. That is the goal. Not to remove discomfort, to normalize it. When discomfort becomes normal, you stop being ruled by it. You do not need perfect conditions to act. You do not need silence to focus. You do not need confidence to begin. You do not need every answer before you move. You need tolerance. You need patience. You need the ability to remain calm while the work is hard and the result is still far away. You don't need their permission. You do not need people around you to understand your process. They may not understand why you are choosing difficult things. They may not understand why you keep going when the room is quiet and the work is heavy. That is fine. The disciplined life is not built for applause. It is built for results. And results are born in discomfort. Think about training the body. The muscle does not grow in comfort. It grows under stress. The burn is not the enemy. The burn is the signal. It says the body is being challenged. It says adaptation is happening. It says something is being built. Your mind works the same way. When you sit through the awkwardness of a difficult conversation, you are building courage. When you keep writing during the slow middle of a project, you are building endurance. When you keep speaking, even as your voice shakes, you are building confidence. When you keep working through mental resistance, you are building identity. It's not about fear, it's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about fear, it's about discipline. Fear may be present. Let it be present. Fear does not disqualify you. Discomfort does not disqualify you. The question is whether you will keep moving while fear is still in the room. That is the difference between a weak mind and a trained mind.
A weak mind says, "This feels bad, so stop." A trained mind says, "This feels bad, so continue." That's the key. Do not make discomfort the judge of your life. Do not let pressure decide your identity. Do not let uncertainty control your actions. Do not let the burn become your excuse. Instead, train yourself to breathe inside it. Slow down. Stay present. Keep your posture. Keep your focus. Keep your hand on the work. Keep your voice steady. Keep your body moving. Keep your promise to yourself. That is how endurance is built. You become calm not by avoiding pressure, but by surviving pressure again and again until the mind realizes pressure is survivable. Then something powerful happens. You stop fearing the hard thing. You stop dramatizing the hard thing. You stop calling the hard thing impossible. You start seeing it for what it is, a requirement, a challenge, a proving ground. And now the standard rises. You no longer need easy. You no longer need safe. You no longer need perfect. You need honest effort inside hard conditions. You need to stay in the fire long enough for the fire to teach you who you really are. And who are you? You are not someone who collapses at tension. You are not someone who runs from strain. You are not someone who quits when the room gets hot. You are someone who learns, someone who adapts, someone who remains. That's the transformation. You have a choice. Stay soft and keep avoiding discomfort, or stay present and let discomfort forge you. One path keeps you fragile. The other path makes you dependable. One path protects your feelings. The other path protects your future. So learn to stay uncomfortable. Learn to breathe through it. Learn to work through it. Learn to speak through it. Learn to think through it. Learn to finish through it. Because comfort is not your home, and discomfort is not your death. It is your training ground. Stay in the fire. Do not run from the burn. Let the burn become familiar. Let the pressure become ordinary. Let the hard thing become normal. That is how the mind is trained to do hard things. And once you can stay in the fire, you are ready for the next lesson. Chapter 5. Kill the need to feel ready. Readiness is one of the most dangerous lies the mind ever tells. It sounds responsible, it sounds mature, it sounds careful, but for most people it is fear wearing a clean suit. They say they are waiting to feel ready. They say they are waiting for clarity. They say they are waiting for the right time, the right money, the right energy, the right confidence, the right moment. And while they wait, their life stays exactly where it is. You have a choice. You can keep worshiping readiness, or you can start before you feel ready. That's the key. The perfect moment is often a fantasy created by fear. Fear wants a delay. Fear wants a guarantee. Fear wants proof before movement. But life does not reward waiting. Life rewards action. Start unready. Repeat that. Start unready. Start unready. Start unready. Because readiness is usually not a condition, it is a consequence. Most people think they need to become prepared before they begin. Wrong. They become prepared by beginning. They become sharper by showing up. They become clearer by doing. They become stronger by entering the work before their mind has fully agreed to it. Look at real life. The person who wants to start a business keeps waiting until everything is perfect. The logo is not done, the website is not done, the plan is not perfect, the money is not enough, the confidence is not there, so they wait, and waiting becomes a lifestyle. The person who wants to write the book keeps saying they need more time, more inspiration, more structure, so the pages remain blank. The person who wants to change their body says they will begin after they buy the right shoes, the right clothes, the right meal plan, the right schedule, so the body stays the same. The person who wants to repair their life says they will start when everything settles down, but life rarely settles down on its own. That is the trap. Readiness is often just a delay strategy, and delay always sounds reasonable when fear is in charge. You do not need to feel ready to do the work. You do not need to feel ready to make the call. You do not need to feel ready to post the content. You do not need to feel ready to speak the truth.
Chapter 5. Kill the need to feel ready. Readiness is one of the most dangerous lies the mind ever tells. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. It sounds careful. But for most people, it is fear wearing a clean suit. They say they are waiting to feel ready. They say they are waiting for clarity. They say they are waiting for the right time, the right money, the right energy, the right confidence, the right moment. And while they wait, their life stays exactly where it is. You have a choice. You can keep worshiping readiness, or you can start before you feel ready. That's the key. The perfect moment is often a fantasy created by fear. Fear wants a delay. Fear wants a guarantee. Fear wants proof before movement. But life does not reward waiting. Life rewards action. Start unready. Repeat that. Start unready. Start unready. Start unready. Because readiness is usually not a condition, it is a consequence. Most people think they need to become prepared before they begin. Wrong. They become prepared by beginning. They become sharper by showing up. They become clearer by doing. They become stronger by entering the work before their mind has fully agreed to it. Look at real life. The person who wants to start a business keeps waiting until everything is perfect. The logo is not done. The website is not done. The plan is not perfect. The money is not enough. The confidence is not there. So they wait, and waiting becomes a lifestyle. The person who wants to write the book keeps saying they need more time, more inspiration, more structure, so the pages remain blank. The person who wants to change their body says they will begin after they buy the right shoes, the right clothes, the right meal plan, the right schedule, so the body stays the same. The person who wants to repair their life says they will start when everything settles down, but life rarely settles down on its own. That is the trap. Readiness is often just a delay strategy, and delay always sounds reasonable when fear is in charge. You do not need to feel ready to do the work. You do not need to feel ready to make the call. You do not need to feel ready to post the content. You do not need to feel ready to speak the truth. You do not need to feel ready to begin. You need to begin so readiness can be built. That's the key. Action creates readiness. Action creates readiness. Action creates readiness. The mind is backward when left alone. It demands certainty before commitment. But certainty is not usually given first. It is earned through movement. You begin with what you know. You act with what you have. You move with the strength available now, not the strength you wish you had later. This is why so many people remain stuck in the same place for years. They are waiting to become a different person before they act like a different person. It does not work that way. The person becomes different by acting differently. You have a choice. Either your fear decides when you begin, or your discipline does. Either you let your mind keep protecting you from growth, or you force it to face the work. That's the key. The mind calls it not yet. Discipline calls it now. And now is where change lives. Readiness is dangerous because it is easy to confuse with wisdom. But wisdom is not delay. Wisdom is knowing when hesitation is disguised fear. Wisdom is knowing that perfect conditions are not guaranteed. Wisdom is understanding that action is the only doorway through which progress enters. You don't need their permission. You do not need anyone to validate your beginning. You do not need the market to approve you before you try. You do not need the crowd to clap before you move. You do not need friends, family, followers, or strangers to tell you that you are qualified to start. You are either going to obey the task or you are going to hide behind preparation forever. That is the decision. And hidden inside that decision is something deeper. Many people are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of exposure. They are afraid that starting will reveal limits. They are afraid that action will prove they are not as ready as they imagined. So they stay in preparation, where the ego feels safe.
But safety is expensive. It costs growth. It costs confidence. It costs time. It costs the life you keep saying you want. It's not about readiness. It's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about readiness. It's about discipline. Discipline does not ask if you feel prepared. Discipline asks if the task matters. Discipline does not ask if the timing is comfortable. Discipline asks if the future depends on it. Discipline does not wait for fear to disappear. Discipline moves while fear is still present. That is what strong people do. They do not wait until they feel 100% ready. They move at 60%. They move at 40%. They move tired. They move uncertain. They move while the mind is still debating. They move because momentum is more valuable than perfection. And once momentum starts, the mind changes. You begin the work, and suddenly the task becomes clearer. You send the first message, and suddenly the conversation becomes real. You write the first page, and suddenly the book becomes possible. You take the first step in training, and suddenly the body begins to respond. You make the first move toward repair, and suddenly healing has somewhere to go. Clarity follows motion. Clarity follows motion. Clarity follows motion. Never forget that. The mind loves imaginary preparation because imaginary preparation does not demand risk, but real progress demands risk. Real progress demands you show up before your confidence is polished. Real progress demands you become a beginner before you become skilled. Real progress demands uncomfortable first steps. So here is the rule. Start before you feel ready. Stay in motion before confidence arrives. Keep going before certainty appears. Let the work make you ready. That is how you build a life that moves. You have a choice. Either your fear decides when you begin, or your discipline does. Either you let your mind keep protecting you from growth, or you force it to face the work. That's the key. The mind calls it not yet. Discipline calls it now. And now is where change lives. Readiness is dangerous because it is easy to confuse with wisdom. But wisdom is not delay. Wisdom is knowing when hesitation is disguised fear. Wisdom is knowing that perfect conditions are not guaranteed. Wisdom is understanding that action is the only doorway through which progress enters. You don't need their permission. You do not need anyone to validate your beginning. You do not need the market to approve you before you try. You do not need the crowd to clap before you move. You do not need friends, family, followers, or strangers to tell you that you are qualified to start. You are either going to obey the task or you are going to hide behind preparation forever. That is the decision. And hidden inside that decision is something deeper. Many people are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of exposure. They are afraid that starting will reveal limits. They are afraid that action will prove they are not as ready as they imagined. So they stay in preparation, where the ego feels safe. But safety is expensive. It costs growth. It costs confidence. It costs time. It costs the life you keep saying you want. It's not about readiness. It's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about readiness. It's about discipline. Discipline does not ask if you feel prepared. Discipline asks if the task matters. Discipline does not ask if the timing is comfortable. Discipline asks if the future depends on it. Discipline does not wait for fear to disappear. Discipline moves while fear is still present. That is what strong people do. They do not wait until they feel 100% ready. They move at 60%. They move at 40%. They move tired. They move uncertain. They move while the mind is still debating. They move because momentum is more valuable than perfection. And once momentum starts, the mind changes. You begin the work, and suddenly the task becomes clearer. You send the first message, and suddenly the conversation becomes real. You write the first page, and suddenly the book becomes possible. You take the first step in training, and suddenly the body begins to respond. You make the first move toward repair, and suddenly healing has somewhere to go. Clarity follows motion. Clarity follows motion. Clarity follows motion. Never forget that. The mind loves imaginary preparation because imaginary preparation does not demand risk, but real progress demands risk. Real progress demands you show up before your confidence is polished. Real progress demands you become a beginner before you become skilled. Real progress demands uncomfortable first steps. So here is the rule. Start before you feel ready. Stay in motion before confidence arrives. Keep going before certainty appears. Let the work make you ready. That is how you build a life that moves. You have a choice. Either your fear decides when you begin, or your discipline does. Either you let your mind keep protecting you from growth, or you force it to face the work. That's the key. The mind calls it not yet. Discipline calls it now. And now.
Chapter 6. Train your mind to obey on command. A strong mind does not debate every instruction. A strong mind responds. That is the difference between power and chaos, between control and drift, between a life that moves and a life that endlessly argues with itself. Most people lose their day before the day begins because they allow an internal meeting to happen over every decision. Get up or stay down, start or delay, focus or scroll, finish or quit. And every time the mind opens a debate, energy leaks out, time leaks out, confidence leaks out. You have a choice. You can keep negotiating with yourself, or you can train the mind to obey on command. That's the key. The mind must learn that once a decision is made, the discussion is over. No internal arguments, no back and forth, no courtroom inside your head. You decide, then you move. Command and comply. Repeat that. Command and comply. Command and comply. Command and comply. That is the language of discipline. Not maybe, not later, not let me think about it for a while, not how do I feel about it today. Command and comply. Because if the mind is allowed to question every instruction, it will eventually question every standard. And once the standard weakens, the life weakens with it. Look at real life. You set a time to wake up, but the alarm rings and the bed starts negotiating. You set a time to work, but the mind starts asking if the task can wait. You set a plan for the day, but one small distraction begins rewriting the entire schedule. You promise yourself one workout, one page, one call, one hard conversation, one finished task, and then emotion steps in like an unruly child asking for a different outcome. That is not power. That is a mind without command. The disciplined person is different. The disciplined person does not make every task feel optional. The disciplined person does not treat every instruction like a suggestion. The disciplined person does what was decided. That's the key. A command is only useful if it is followed. A standard is only real if it is obeyed. A plan is only alive if action happens. You must stop allowing emotions to renegotiate your own orders. If you said 6 a.m., then 6 a.m. means 6 a.m. If you said 30 minutes of work, then 30 minutes means 30 minutes. If you said finish the chapter, then finish the chapter. If you said do the reps, then do the reps. If you said make the call, then make the call. No internal arguments. That phrase matters because internal arguments are where discipline dies. The mind begins with one complaint, then another, and suddenly the task has been delayed, softened, minimized, or escaped. You must cut the argument before it grows teeth. Here is how obedience is trained. First, make the command clear. Do not speak vaguely to yourself. Do not say, I should maybe try to work on this. Say, I will work on this at 9. Say, I will complete this now. Say, I will not leave this unfinished. Clear commands create clear action. Second, keep the command small enough to obey immediately.
A mind is easier to train when the next step is obvious. One page, one call, one set, one email, one block of focused time, one simple decision. Train the mind through simple victories first, then increase the weight. Third, obey even when the feeling resists. That is where the training happens. Not when it is convenient, not when motivation is high, not when the room is quiet and the mood is perfect. Training happens when the mind says no and the body follows command anyway. That's the key. You are not trying to become someone who never feels resistance. You are becoming someone who does not obey resistance. There is a massive difference. Resistance may appear in the morning. Resistance may appear in the middle of work. Resistance may appear when the task gets boring. Resistance may appear when no one is watching. Let it appear, then override it. You don't need their permission. You do not need the permission of your feelings. You do not need the permission of your mood. You do not need the permission of your past. You do not need the permission of your self-doubt. You need the permission of your own standard, and that standard is already decided. Obey the standard. Repeat that. Obey the standard. Obey the standard. Obey the standard. A standard is not something you revisit every hour. A standard is a line you have already drawn. When the alarm goes off, the standard says rise. When the task appears, the standard says start. When the body complains, the standard says continue. When fatigue shows up, the standard says finish. That is mental control, and mental control is built through repetition, not fantasy. People want to feel strong, but they do not want the repetition that creates strength. People want to feel focused, but they do not want the repetition that creates focus. People want to feel stable, but they do not want the repetition that creates stability. You become obedient through repeated obedience. You become reliable through repeated follow-through. You become disciplined through repeated command. Do not underestimate small daily commands. Wake up when you said you would wake up. Sit down when you said you would sit down. Work when you said you would work. Stop when you said you would stop. Finish when you said you would finish. Each kept command builds trust between the mind and the self. Each broken command creates noise. And if enough commands are broken, the mind stops believing your words. That is a dangerous place to live, because once the mind stops believing you, your intentions no longer matter much. So rebuild trust through follow-through. You said you would do it. Do it. You said you would not delay. Do not delay. You said you would stay focused. Stay focused. You said you would complete the task. Complete the task. No internal arguments. A trained mind does not need a long speech every time. It needs a command and a move. Short, clear, final. That is why military language is powerful. It removes emotional clutter. It removes indecision. It removes softness. It makes the next action obvious. Command and comply. That is the rhythm of discipline. That is the rhythm of progress. That is the rhythm of a mind that has been trained. Now, listen closely. You are always training something. If you negotiate with yourself, you train negotiation. If you delay yourself, you train delay. If you excuse yourself, you train excuses. If you obey yourself, you train obedience. There is no neutral ground. So when the command is given, comply. When the plan is clear, comply. When the standard is set, comply. When the task is hard, comply. That is how you build inner authority. And once inner authority is built, the world changes around you because you stop being at the mercy of random impulses. You stop waking up and asking the mood what the day will be. You stop letting emotion run the operation. You become the operator. That's the key. Not the victim of your thoughts, not the hostage of your feelings, not the employee of your impulses, the operator. A person who can say, we move now, and then moves. A person who can say, we finish this, and then finishes. A person who can say, this is the standard, and then lives by it. You have a choice. Keep living in internal debate, or build a mind that obeys command. One path keeps you noisy and weak. The other makes you quiet and powerful. One path gives every emotion a vote. The other gives discipline the throne. So train the mind. Command and comply. No internal arguments. Obey the standard. And once that becomes your language, hard things stop feeling impossible and start feeling trainable. You have built control. Now, let's take that control and remove the next enemy of progress.
Chapter 7. Stop making your life about mood. Mood is unstable. That is the first truth. Mood changes. Mood swings. Mood disappears. And if you build your life around mood, your life will become unstable too. That is why so many people stay unfinished. They start strong when they feel inspired. They move fast when energy is high. They promise a lot when the day feels light. But the moment the mood drops, the whole system collapses. The work stops. The dream slows. The standard weakens. You have a choice. You can let mood decide your output, or you can let discipline decide your life. That's the key. Mood is not the master. Mood is not the leader. Mood is not the rule. Mood is a visitor. It comes and goes. Discipline stays. Repeat that. Mood is not the master. Mood is not the master. Mood is not the master. Most people do not fail because they lack talent. They fail because they make every decision dependent on how they feel. They ask, "Do I feel like doing this today?" instead of asking, "Does this need to be done today?" That question changes everything. One question serves the emotion, the other serves the future. And the future does not care about your mood. The future only responds to consistency. That's the key. A mood-driven life is a broken life, not because the person is bad, but because the system is weak. Some days the person is productive. Some days the person is absent. Some days they are focused. Some days they are unreachable. Some days they are fired up. Some days they vanish. That kind of pattern does not build trust, not with others and not with yourself. And self-trust is everything. When you keep showing up only on good days, you teach yourself that bad days are allowed to control you. When you let low energy cancel your standards, you teach yourself that comfort outranks commitment. When you use mood as an excuse, you train the mind to expect escape. Do not do that to yourself. Show up anyway. Repeat that. Show up anyway. Show up anyway. Show up anyway. That is the response of a trained mind, not a perfect mind, not a cheerful mind, not an easy mind, a trained mind. The kind of mind that understands that results are built by people who work through the ordinary resistance of life instead of surrendering to it. Look at real life. The worker wakes up tired. The parent wakes up overwhelmed. The student wakes up mentally heavy. The creator wakes up uninspired. The leader wakes up carrying pressure. That is normal. The question is not whether the mood is perfect. The question is whether the standard remains. Because if the standard disappears every time the feeling changes, then there never was a standard. There was only a preference. You have a choice. You can live by preference or you can live by principle. Preference says, "I will do it if I feel like it." Principle says, "I will do it because it matters." Preference is weak. Principle is strong. Preference bends. Principle stands. And the people who transform their lives do not wait for their emotions to line up perfectly. They work through the bad mornings. They work through the mental fog. They work through the days where the energy is low and the will is thinner than usual. They do not turn every bad feeling into a full excuse. They show up anyway. That is what disciplined people do. A bad mood is not a failed life.
A low-energy day is not a failed life. A frustrating morning is not a failed life. But turning every one of those moments into a reason to stop, that creates failure over time. It's not about mood, it's about consistency. Repeat that. It's not about mood, it's about consistency. It's not about mood, it's about consistency. It's not about mood, it's about consistency. Consistency is what turns effort into identity. Consistency is what turns random action into real change. Consistency is what builds the results that mood can never build by itself. You do not become strong by occasional effort. You become strong by repeated effort. You do not become reliable by feeling committed once. You become reliable by acting committed repeatedly. The mood-driven person says, "Today feels off." The disciplined person says, "The work still matters." The mood-driven person says, "I'm not in the right headspace." The disciplined person says, "Then I will create the headspace by working." The mood-driven person says, "I need to feel better first." The disciplined person says, "Action will stabilize me." That's the key. Action creates stability. Action creates momentum. Action creates identity. You do not have to wait until the entire day feels right. You start the day by doing what matters. You make the bed. You open the file. You go to the gym. You write the page. You make the call. You begin the work. And as the work moves, the mind follows. You don't need their permission. You do not need the permission of the mood. You do not need the permission of the weather inside your head. You do not need the permission of the energy level you woke up with. You do not need the permission of the voice that says, "Not today." That voice is not in charge. The day must belong to something greater than mood. It must belong to standards. It must belong to purpose. It must belong to the decision you already made when you said this life matters. And if the day is hard, that does not cancel the mission. If the body is tired, that does not cancel the mission. If the mind is distracted, that does not cancel the mission. The mission stays. That is what strong people understand. They do not need to be emotionally perfect to perform. They do not need a flawless mood to honor their standards. They do not need constant excitement to stay committed. They know that greatness is not built on feeling good. Greatness is built on staying faithful when feeling good is unavailable. That means showing up when nobody is applauding. That means working when the day feels flat. That means continuing when the inner voice wants to make everything personal. That means choosing the standard over the sensation. You have a choice. You can let your emotions drive the car, or you can sit in the driver's seat and direct the day. If emotion drives, the day becomes unpredictable. If discipline drives, the day becomes productive. If mood drives, your future becomes random. If discipline drives, your future becomes deliberate. And deliberate lives are built one ordinary decision at a time. So stop making your life about mood. Stop waiting to feel different before you act different. Stop turning a temporary feeling into a permanent excuse. Stop abandoning your standards every time energy dips. Show up anyway. When the mind is quiet, show up anyway. When the mood is dark, show up anyway. When the body is tired, show up anyway. When the plan feels heavy, show up anyway. Because consistency beats emotion. Consistency beats emotion. Consistency beats emotion. That is the lesson. And once the mind learns this, it becomes harder to sabotage. The day stops controlling you. The mood stops controlling you. The feelings stop controlling you. You become a person who can be counted on, not because every day feels good, but because every day has a standard. That is real power. Not emotional performance, not random energy, not temporary fire. Consistency. You have a choice, and when you choose consistency over mood, you begin to build a life that does not collapse every time the feeling changes. That is how hard things become possible. That is how discipline becomes identity. That is how the mind is trained. Now that mood no longer rules you, it is time to deal with the next enemy.
Chapter 8. Become dangerous to your excuses. Excuses survive in a soft mind. That is the truth. Not in a weak schedule, not in a difficult season, not in a busy life, in a soft mind. Because excuses do not create themselves. You have a choice. You can keep explaining your limits, or you can become dangerous to your excuses. That's the key. The moment you stop treating excuses like valid arguments, they begin to lose power. Excuses are not facts. Excuses are stories. And most of the time, they are stories designed to protect comfort. So cut the story short. Repeat that. Cut the story short. Cut the story short. Cut the story short. Do not let the mind write a long speech every time it wants to avoid effort. Do not let it build a case. Do not let it drag your future into court. The moment an excuse appears, identify it, name it, cut it, move. Because excuses are negotiable, standards are not. That's the key. Standards do not bend every time life gets inconvenient. Standards do not collapse because the day is hard. Standards do not disappear because the mind wants sympathy. Standards stand. Excuses bend. Excuses twist. Excuses multiply. And if you are not careful, they will start running your life one justification at a time. Look at the common ones. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. The people around me are the problem. My past makes this hard. My circumstances are not right. I'll do it when things calm down. Those are not always lies in the shallow sense. Time can be limited. Money can be tight. People can be difficult. The past can hurt. Circumstances can be unfair. That is all true, but truth is not the same as permission. You do not need a perfect life to make progress. You need discipline inside the life you already have. That is where most people break. They stare at the limitations and hand their power to them. They say, because I do not have everything, I cannot begin. Wrong. You begin with what you have. You move inside the limitation. You work inside the pressure. You build inside the constraint. That is what successful people do. They do not wait for ideal conditions. They act in the middle of reality. The person with limited money starts with what is available. The person with limited time protects the time they have. The person with painful history refuses to let the past become a prison. The person with difficult people stops giving them control over the mission. The person with imperfect circumstances stops using imperfection as a reason to surrender. That's the difference. You have a choice. You can use limitation as an excuse, or you can use limitation as training. The first keeps you small. The second makes you sharp. The first says, I can't because. The second says, I will with what I have. Your excuse is not your identity. Repeat that. Your excuse is not your identity. Your excuse is not your identity. Your excuse is not your identity. This matters because many people mistake a temporary obstacle for a permanent personality. They say, I'm just the kind of person who struggles with this. No, you are not your excuse. You are not your current delay. You are not your present weakness. You are not the story you've repeated to soften the blow of inaction. You are the person who can choose again. That is the power. And if you want to become dangerous to your excuses, you must stop identifying with them. Do not say, that's just how I am. Do not say, I've always been this way. Do not say, this is my problem. Say, that is a pattern, and patterns can be broken. That's the key.
Excuses are often comfortable because they offer immediate relief. They make failure feel understandable. They make inaction feel intelligent. They make avoidance feel justified. But comfort is a liar. Relief is temporary, and the long-term cost of excuse-making is massive. Your confidence drops. Your standards slip. Your work slows. Your self-respect weakens. Your future gets smaller. So the question is not whether excuses will show up. They will. The question is whether you will let them live. Kill them early. When the excuse says, "You are too tired," ask, "What is the smallest action I can do now?" When the excuse says, "You do not have enough time," ask, "What can be done in 10 minutes?" When the excuse says, "You do not have enough money," ask, "What step can be taken with zero cost?" When the excuse says, "People are not helping you," ask, "What can you do without help?" When the excuse says, "The past broke you," ask, "What is the next useful action?" That is how excuses are defeated, not by wishing them away, by refusing to obey them. You do not need their permission. You do not need your excuse to agree before you move. You do not need your fear to approve before you act. You do not need your circumstances to become polished before you begin. You do not need the perfect setup. You need a decision. And once the decision is made, the excuse loses its throne. Successful people are not people with no limitations. They are people who learned how to function inside limitations without worshiping them. That is the skill. That is the edge. That is the discipline. They do not say, "I can't." They say, "What can be done now?" They do not say, "I'll wait until everything is better." They say, "I will work with what is here." They do not say, "My life is too messy." They say, "Then I will build in the mess." It's not about circumstances. It's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about circumstances. It's about discipline. Circumstances matter, but they do not rule. Circumstances exist, but they do not decide. Circumstances create pressure, but pressure is not a stop sign. A dangerous person to excuses is a person who stops romanticizing the obstacle, a person who sees the obstacle, names the obstacle, and still moves, a person who refuses to spend more time explaining why the work is hard than actually doing the work. Cut the story short. The longer you talk yourself out of action, the stronger the excuse becomes. The shorter the story, the stronger the standard. So make your response immediate. No. Do it. Start. Continue. Finish. That is the language of a trained mind. And every time you answer an excuse with action, you weaken its grip. You prove that limitations are not rulers. You prove that pressure is not permission to quit. You prove that your future is bigger than your current obstacle. That is how the mind becomes dangerous to excuses. Not by being perfect, by being relentless. Not by having everything, by using what is available. Not by waiting for life to become easy, by becoming harder to stop. You have a choice. Keep feeding excuses and calling it realism, or cut the story short and live by standards. One path keeps you stuck inside explanation. The other path puts you in motion. One path protects your comfort. The other path protects your destiny. So identify the excuse fast. Name it fast. Reject it fast. Move fast. Because excuses are negotiable. Standards are not. Excuses are negotiable. Standards are not. Excuses are negotiable. Standards are not. That is the rule now. And once you become dangerous to your excuses, you stop being easy to delay. You stop being easy to manipulate. You stop being easy to weaken. The mind learns that excuses are no longer welcome. That is transformation. You are not your excuse. Your excuse is not your identity. Your standard is. And now that excuses have been stripped of their power, the next lesson is simple.
Chapter 9. Build a mind that finishes.
Starting is common. Finishing is power. That is the truth most people do not want to hear, because starting feels good. Starting feels hopeful. Starting feels exciting. Starting gives the mind a quick rush of identity. I began. I made a move. I finally got going. But starting is not the test. Finishing is the test. You have a choice. You can become the kind of person who begins many things, or the kind of person who completes what they begin. That's the key. A weak mind starts for attention. A strong mind finishes for identity. One lives on the thrill of the beginning. The other lives on the proof of completion. Finish what you start. Repeat that. Finish what you start. Finish what you start. Finish what you start. Because unfinished work is heavier than hard work. An unfinished task sits in the mind. It drains attention. It drains confidence. It drains energy. Every incomplete thing becomes a quiet reminder that you are still carrying what you should have closed. That is why completion matters. Completion builds character. Completion builds trust. Completion builds identity. And the mind learns from closure. Repeat that. The mind learns from closure. The mind learns from closure. The mind learns from closure. The brain remembers when you end what you begin. It learns that your word means something. It learns that effort is not wasted. It learns that discomfort does not get the final vote. It learns that the task will not be abandoned halfway through just because it stopped feeling exciting. Look at real life. The person who stops halfway through a workout does not just miss exercise. They train the mind to quit early. The person who opens a project and leaves it hanging does not just delay work. They train the mind to tolerate incompletion. The person who makes promises and breaks them does not just disappoint someone else. They weaken self-trust. The person who avoids a difficult conversation does not just postpone tension. They let unresolved pressure keep living in the system. That is what unfinished work does. It fragments the mind. It weakens confidence. It makes the next start harder. You have a choice. You can keep collecting beginnings, or you can start building completion. That's the key. Strong people are not only good starters. Strong people are finishers. They know that every completed thing deposits power back into the self. Every finished task says, I can be trusted. Every closed loop says, I do not abandon my own standards. And that changes everything. Completion is not a productivity trick. Completion is an identity shift. The mind that finishes begins to see itself differently. It stops saying, I hope I can follow through. It starts saying, I finish. It stops saying, I'll try. It starts saying, I complete. It stops saying, I began something once. It starts saying, I am the kind of person who closes the loop. That is the transformation. The task does not just get done, the person gets built. And if you want that identity, you must make finishing non-negotiable. Do not leave a task hanging because it is no longer convenient. Do not leave a workout unfinished because the burn got real. Do not leave a project incomplete because the initial energy faded. Do not leave a conversation unresolved because it is awkward. Do not leave a promise half-kept because it would require more effort. Finish it. That is the command. There is a difference between intelligent pausing and cowardly stopping. Sometimes a task truly needs to be paused. Rest matters. Strategy matters. Reflection matters. But most unfinished things are not paused because of wisdom. They're paused because of resistance. The mind wants escape. The body wants relief. The ego wants to move on before the discomfort has been paid in full. Do not obey that impulse. Finish what you start. A half-built life is heavy. A half-trained mind is fragile. A half-kept promise damages trust. A half-done effort leaves the soul restless. The mind wants closure because closure gives relief, clarity, and power. Open loops steal all three.
so close the loop. That's the key. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be fast. You do not have to be impressive. You do have to finish. That is what separates a disciplined person from a distracted one. The distracted person starts when inspired and stops when resistance arrives. The disciplined person starts when necessary and finishes when required. The distracted person likes the idea of progress. The disciplined person likes the reality of completion. The distracted person leaves a trail of unfinished things. The disciplined person leaves evidence, and evidence matters. Evidence tells the mind, we are capable. Evidence tells the mind, we do not collapse at the end. Evidence tells the mind, we finish under pressure. Evidence tells the mind, we are reliable. You have a choice. You can live as someone who repeatedly abandons the hard middle, or as someone who becomes dangerous in the final stretch. That final stretch is where many people fail. That is where boredom rises. That is where doubt rises. That is where the mind says it is close enough. But close enough is not completion. Close enough is a lie. Close enough does not build trust. Close enough does not build mastery. Close enough does not build character. Completion does. So when the work is almost done, push through. When the workout is almost complete, finish strong. When the project is near the end, do not loosen your grip. When the conversation is hard, do not leave it suspended in silence. When the promise is almost kept, keep it fully. That's the key. The last 10% matters because the last 10% is where self-respect is either sealed or lost. Many people can look motivated in the beginning. Fewer can stay disciplined at the end. The finish line exposes the mind. It reveals whether the person is serious or theatrical, committed or casual, trained or emotional. Be serious. Do not let the mind tell you that almost counts. Do not let the mind tell you that good enough is enough when the standard was higher. Do not let the mind steal the clean finish you need. Completion builds confidence because the mind remembers finished things more deeply than intended things. You said you would do it. You did it. That matters. You said you would train. You trained. That matters. You said you would write. You wrote. That matters. You said you would face it. You faced it. That matters. The mind learns from closure. The mind learns from closure. The mind learns from closure. And once it learns that pattern, it stops fearing the end of difficult things. It starts trusting the process. It starts expecting follow-through. It starts becoming the type of mind that sees a finish line and moves towards it with authority. You don't need their permission. You don't need anyone to applaud your completion. You don't need anyone to notice every closed loop. You don't need anyone to understand why completion matters. You need the standard. You need the closure. You need the integrity. Because unfinished work creates a split life. Finished work creates a whole life. It's not about talent. It's about completion. Repeat that. It's not about talent. It's about completion. It's not about talent. It's about completion. It's not about talent. It's about completion. A talented mind that does not finish is weak. A less talented mind that finishes is powerful. Why? Because completion compounds. It builds momentum. It builds trust. It builds identity. It turns ordinary action into durable strength. So finish the workout. Finish the page. Finish the plan. Finish the promise. Finish the hard conversation. Finish the season of half-done living. No more loose ends. No more abandoned effort. No more half-built confidence. Finish what you start. That is how the mind becomes solid. That is how self-trust returns. That is how discipline becomes visible. That is how hard things lose their power over you. And when you can finish, even when it is hard, even when it is boring, even when it hurts, you stop being someone who merely begins. You become someone who delivers. That is the next level. You have built a mind that stays. Now, let's make hard things ordinary.
Chapter 10. Make hard things your new normal. Hard things are not the exception. They are the requirement. That is where most people get it wrong. They treat difficulty like an emergency. They treat pressure like a surprise. They treat resistance like something that should not be there. And because of that, every hard moment feels like a disruption instead of a direction. You have a choice. You can keep reacting to difficulty like it is a problem, or you can start treating it like your training ground. That's the key. Hard things are not interruptions to your life. Hard things are the path your life must walk to grow. Hard is normal. Repeat that. Hard is normal. Hard is normal. Hard is normal. Once that belief becomes real, everything changes. You stop asking, why is this so hard? And you start saying, this is exactly what I signed up for. You stop seeing resistance as a signal to retreat, and you start seeing it as confirmation that you are in the right place. That is power. Because the moment hard becomes normal, fear begins to shrink. Fear feeds on the unfamiliar. Fear feeds on the unknown. Fear grows in the spaces you avoid. But when you step into difficulty again and again, something happens. The mind starts to recognize the pattern. It starts to say, I've been here before. And once the mind feels familiar with pressure, it stops panicking. That's the key. Familiarity creates power. The first time you do something hard, it feels overwhelming. The second time, it feels uncomfortable. The third time, it feels manageable. The fourth time, it starts to feel routine. The fifth time, it becomes part of your identity. What you repeat, you become. Repeat that. What you repeat, you become. What you repeat, you become. If you repeat avoidance, you become avoidant. If you repeat delay, you become delayed. If you repeat excuses, you become limited. But if you repeat hard things, you become strong. That is the transformation this entire journey has been building toward. Not one moment of courage, not one burst of motivation, not one dramatic change, but a consistent pattern of choosing difficulty over comfort, action over delay, discipline over emotion, completion over convenience. That is how a powerful mind is built. You have a choice. Every day you are given opportunities to choose the easy path or the hard path. The easy path feels good now and costs you later. The hard path feels heavy now and pays you later. Most people keep choosing easy, then wonder why life becomes harder. The few who choose hard early find that life becomes easier later. That's the trade. Short-term discomfort for long-term control. Short-term pressure for long-term power. Short-term discipline for long-term freedom. Pressure is practice. Repeat that. Pressure is practice. Pressure is practice. Pressure is practice. Every difficult moment is not just something to survive, it is something to use. It is a repetition. It is a rep for the mind. It is a chance to reinforce the identity you are building. When you face pressure and move anyway, you are practicing strength. When you face resistance and continue anyway, you are practicing discipline. When you face fear and act anyway, you are practicing courage. Practice builds skill. Skill builds confidence. Confidence builds control. And control is what you wanted from the beginning. Not control over the world, control over yourself. That is the highest level. You do not need their permission. You do not need anyone to agree that your life should be hard. You do not need anyone to understand why you choose difficult paths. You do not need validation for choosing discipline over comfort. Most people will not understand it because most people are still trying to escape discomfort. But you are different now. You are no longer running from hard things. You are walking toward them because you understand something deeper. Easy does not build you. Easy weakens you. Easy softens your edge. Easy makes you dependent on conditions staying perfect, and conditions never stay perfect.
Hard prepares you. Hard sharpens you. Hard strengthens you. Hard reveals you. It's not about difficulty, it's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about difficulty, it's about discipline. Hard things by themselves do not change you. You can face difficulty and still remain the same if you do not engage with it correctly. But when you meet difficulty with discipline, when you meet pressure with presence, when you meet resistance with action, that is when transformation happens. So do not just face hard things, use them. Use the early mornings, use the long hours, use the silence, use the rejection, use the uncertainty, use the fatigue, use the pressure. All of it is training. All of it is shaping you. All of it is building a version of you that cannot be easily shaken. That is the goal. Not a life without difficulty, a mind that is not broken by difficulty. You have a choice. Every day you are given opportunities to choose the easy path or the hard path. The easy path feels good now and costs you later. The hard path feels heavy now and pays you later. Most people keep choosing easy, then wonder why life becomes harder. The few who choose hard early find that life becomes easier later. That's the trade. Short-term discomfort for long-term control. Short-term pressure for long-term power. Short-term discipline for long-term freedom. Pressure is practice. Repeat that. Pressure is practice. Pressure is practice. Pressure is practice. Every difficult moment is not just something to survive, it is something to use. It is a repetition. It is a rep for the mind. It is a chance to reinforce the identity you are building. When you face pressure and move anyway, you are practicing strength. When you face resistance and continue anyway, you are practicing discipline. When you face fear and act anyway, you are practicing courage. Practice builds skill. Skill builds confidence. Confidence builds control. And control is what you wanted from the beginning. Not control over the world, control over yourself. That is the highest level. You do not need their permission. You do not need anyone to agree that your life should be hard. You do not need anyone to understand why you choose difficult paths. You do not need validation for choosing discipline over comfort. Most people will not understand it because most people are still trying to escape discomfort. But you are different now. You are no longer running from hard things. You are walking toward them. Because you understand something deeper. Easy does not build you. Easy weakens you. Easy softens your edge. Easy makes you dependent on conditions staying perfect, and conditions never stay perfect. Hard prepares you. Hard sharpens you. Hard strengthens you. Hard reveals you. It's not about difficulty, it's about discipline. Repeat that. It's not about difficulty, it's about discipline. Hard things by themselves do not change you. You can face difficulty and still remain the same if you do not engage with it correctly. But when you meet difficulty with discipline, when you meet pressure with presence, when you meet resistance with action, that is when transformation happens. So do not just face hard things, use them. Use the early mornings, use the long hours, use the silence, use the rejection, use the uncertainty, use the fatigue, use the pressure. All of it is training. All of it is shaping you. All of it is building a version of you that cannot be easily shaken. That is the goal. Not a life without difficulty, a mind that is not broken by difficulty. You have a choice. Every day you are given opportunities to choose the easy path or the hard path. The easy path feels good now and costs you later. The hard path feels heavy now and pays you later. Most people keep choosing easy, then wonder why life becomes harder. The few who choose hard early find that life becomes easier later. That's the trade. Short-term discomfort for long-term control. Short-term pressure for long-term power. Short-term discipline for long-term freedom. Pressure is practice. Repeat that. Pressure is practice. Pressure is practice. Pressure is practice. Every difficult moment is not just something to survive, it is something to use. It is a repetition. It is a rep for the mind. It is a chance to reinforce the identity you are building. When you face pressure and move anyway, you are practicing strength. When you face resistance and continue anyway, you are practicing discipline. When you face fear and act anyway, you are practicing courage. Practice builds skill. Skill builds confidence. Confidence builds control. And control is what you wanted from the beginning. Not control over the world, control over yourself. That is the